What's been the results of having the officials in practice in regards to the penalties so far?
Well, for us, because I know it helps them, the local guys that we've brought in, it helps them get themselves ready for their seasons. For us, it's being mindful of our technique, being mindful of playing within the rules, and obviously just managing what goes on during practice. There's flags on the ground, so that just the visual, I'm hoping, of them being around on a day-to-day basis moves us in the right direction with respect to the penalties.
Have there been a lot in practice, or is it improved?
Well, there's been some. I walked over to one of them the other day and I said, listen, you got to fill a quota, right? About 5 a day in order to get paid here. So there haven't been as many as maybe I had hoped, but that. I don't want penalties to begin with, but they're here for a reason, and I think it's been hopefully mutually beneficial for them and for us.
Coach, has Coach Dennison reached a decision on where he's going to situate himself on Saturday?
We're still looking at that, and Rick wants to put himself in the best position to be successful. So just like we put our players, so that'll be he's getting himself just right based on our staff, and we got Coach Cully back this week, which was good, and so that changes the dynamic just a little bit as well. So we'll see how that flows.
So Coach Cully, if Coach Dennison is upstairs, Coach Cully would be the connection to the guys on the field.
At this point, Coach Cully will be upstairs for sure.
Leslie Frazier yesterday said it's no doubt it's really Reggie's rehab and rehabilitation and his progress with his knee that's kind of kept him where he is right now in the depth chart, so to speak. But the plan going forward, once the regular season starts, how do you weigh that with giving him enough reps in practice, because there's only so much available time to kind of see if he can move up, or is there a plan in place to kind of up those as they go already in place?
With respect to Reggie's?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, the thing I love about Reggie is he's doing a really good job off the field right now in terms of extra work before practice, extra work after practice, in terms of his conditioning and getting himself where he needs to be. And, coming off the injury, as we all know he's coming off of, you start from a position of deficit, unfortunately, and he's really working hard. He continues to get himself comfortable with our system, and I think that his best football is in front of him.
Given the questions at wide receiver and with Jordan not going to play tomorrow, how do you deal with Walt Powell knowing that he's going to be missing the first 4 games of the season because of the suspension? And how do you, because you need to identify, the number 3 and 4 spots. How do you number 3 and 4 spots? How do you deal with that whole situation in Baltimore?
There's
the receiver spots. I mean, does Walt Powell get playing time? And because the immediate need is trying to identify who the number 3 and 4 receivers will be when you play the Jets on the 10th. Is that correct?
Right, we're gonna look at a lot of guys at the receiver position Saturday night. Walt being one of them. We've got to get out there and establish a rhythm offensively, and that means getting everyone involved, whether it's Walt or the other receivers. So, with respect to the suspension, I mean that obviously is part of what Walt carries with him at this point. That said, he's owned it. We've moved on from that, and I think Walt's done a nice job, had a good camp so far.
Right. I guess, is there more of an urgency to establish what the receiver group will look like for September 10th, as opposed to getting Walt Powell ready for October?
Well, just like at every position, we are evaluating our personnel and evaluating the best 53 for us to move forward into the season with. We know Jordan and what Jordan can do. Jordan's made a tremendous amount of progress over the last week, give or take. He stays after and works with the quarterbacks, and so when you look at Jordan and Zay and Andre, they're developing a nice chemistry. Now it's, like I mentioned earlier, it's, okay, who else is going to step up and show consistency? And I think Walt's been one, as you mentioned Walt's name, he's been one of the players that has had a nice camp. And a couple other guys have done some good things as well. So there's some good competition at that position.
In your mind, what makes Saturday night a success?
Well, again, we're staying process oriented, and for us to go out and do what we do as a football team and establish ourselves at the line of scrimmage, and defensively we have goals that we set out to accomplish every week, and we want to do some things offensively as well. So we want to control the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball. And then fundamentally be where we expect to be at this point in the preseason. Still a couple weeks to go, or a week to go after Saturday night in the preseason, but fundamentally, where are we? We hope we're further along than we were 2 weeks ago and last week with blocking, with tackling, with throwing and catching the football. So we're looking to check those boxes as a football team. And then special teams. We've had some issues where we've shot ourselves in the foot with respect to the penalties. I want to see us continue to play with great effort in all three phases, namely special teams. I think we've played with a tremendous amount of effort and do things that we make people work to beat us. And that's what equates to winning football games.
One of those goals on offense to put the ball in the end zone, first team offense?
Well, that's how you win games, right? You score one more point than the other team, right? So that's what we're looking to do. If it's 1-0, we're going to look to win 1-0. I don't know how you do that yet. I haven't figured that out. CFL maybe, right? 2-0, maybe 2-0, or maybe it's whatever. But we've got a tremendous amount of respect for the Ravens. I mean, they're off to a strong start, and I know Coach Harbaugh. I've worked with him, and so I know what he's developing in his football team, and this will be a nice challenge for us. It really will, and I want to see us come out and have the right look in our eye, and get prepared to play a good football game.
Will Nate
Was it
Peterman
about
still be the
Colton's-
second quarterback in?
I'm sorry?
Will Nate Peterman still be the second quarterback in Saturday?
Yes.
John, how much work do you expect LaShawn to get on Saturday night?
Well, the starters will, I'd like to see them, as I mentioned earlier in the week, come out of the locker room at halftime and play a series or two, give or take in there. LaShawn will be around that area as a starter. So, we'll see how he feels. And really, he's been in this league long enough to know what he needs to do to get himself ready as he ramps up his rep cycle, if you will.
Coach, what was it about Colton's preseason and camp that allowed you to end that competition a little quicker than some of the others?
I think both Colton and Steven have had tremendous preseasons. I love the development of their relationship and the dynamic in watching them interact with Reed, and then Steven and Colton. I mean, that's a nice little triangle of a relationship there, and that's important because they spend a lot of time on their own, separate of the other guys, and they're off to a good start. I love the fact that Colton, he's had a couple mishits in practice, and he's come back the next punt and just been off the charts, in terms of on the good end of things. So his mental toughness, I think, is definitely headed in the right direction.
For when we've been out there, we've seen Vlad Dukas take pretty much all the reps at right guard. What have you seen from him to give him the leg up on John at this point?
Well, it's still an open competition. Vlad will start this week. John started, the first two games, and they're going to continue to rotate. Though, having said that, Joe, with that guard position, so both of those players bring value to our football team. Both have started games before in the NFL. They're tough. They know what we want to get done schematically up front, and the players around those two trust them inherently. So, that's a healthy competition and one that's been fun to watch so far.
Sean, in regards to the position competitions, how important is it for you after this third game to solidify those position battles and shore up the top of the roster?
Well, just overall, you want to start the roster to take shape and the team to take shape, and we're getting there. What happens a lot of times is first year there's a little bit more kind of loose ends at this point, right? Where you're trying to shape it, just because there's a lot of open positions that are being battled for at this point, and that's healthy, and we want that every year. And so, that said, it is important that we start to shape the shape of this football team, and we're seeing that take shape. On the practice field, the last 2 games, we'll see a little bit more take shape this week on Saturday night, and you want to stay healthy so you can continue to shape it. The guys are working extremely hard. I love the work that they've put in through this week, earning the right to win come Saturday night, and so that's what we can control, and that's what we're focused on right now is what we can control and how we play Saturday night.
Do you plan on making those decisions though before the 4th preseason game as to this guy's going to be my starter week 1?
We'll see. We'll see. It depends on the position. Probably depends what happens and what unfolds Saturday night. There are certain guys that have a better grasp on their position than others. And I'll say this: I think every year, if you have the right approach as a coach, as a player, you come into training camp expecting to earn the right to be on the team. And yes, there are some players that have potentially been in one place or started the year before. That said, I just believe, I've been around some really good football players that take that same approach. And I learned that from Brian Dawkins back in Philadelphia over the years. He came to training camp and he said, hey, I saw him in the cafeteria and he said, this is, I've got to earn my seat on this football team. And if a guy like that can say it and feel that way and have that type of attitude and approach, then we all can.
Coach, after last week's performance by the offense, Tyrod said, hey, no excuses, we got to get things right. How has he kind of come through the week of practice here going into Saturday?
Well, the first thing I noticed was his leadership, and it hasn't changed. I mean, he's the first one in the building, or just about the first one in the building, and one of the last to leave. So from a head coach's standpoint, I appreciate that. I know his teammates appreciate that about him. I feel like he's more decisive and playing more free within the offense. He's developing some continuity and chemistry with his receivers and Jordan. Even though Jordan at this point is probably not going to play Saturday night, you're seeing that develop through practice reps together. So that's been good to watch.
With respect to playing more free, can you just maybe be more specific in terms of the latitude that you guys afford him within the scope of the offense and the challenge that a quarterback faces sometimes when he's trying to acclimate himself to a new offense? He wants to kind of play it by the book sometimes, but you're saying he's playing more free. Has he reached the point where he feels comfortable and loose, where he knows what the parameters are?
Yeah, for our players, I want them to know that playing free is powerful. There's power in that. We're not going out there to think. I'm the one who's got to think. Thank God I don't have to play. I'm the one who only has to think. And they got to go out there and play and basically default into the habits that they've built up through the week or through the preseason. And when you do that, there's power in that, and you tend to have or put on display the best version of yourself when you play free and play aggressive.
Coach, is Kevon, when he's healthy, still in the mix for the outside spot opposite Tre'Davious, or is he strictly inside right now with Leonard?
He's in the mix for both positions, and that's the great part about Kevon. He plays outside, he plays inside. The added reps, time on task, will help, and so we look forward to watching him.
Coach, you spoke earlier about supporting and respecting players who make national protests during the national anthem. Is that something, do you think, that could divide a team if some wanted to protest, some didn't?
Well, I could imagine, like anything out there, if you don't handle it the right way, things get off out of kilter and become what you don't want them to become. In this case, like I've said before, if you start and end with love and respect, and that's what we've tried to build here from day one. It can also be an advantage in terms of how we're building this football team around love and around respect, that's what I see on our football team right now, starting to take shape, as I said before.
John, there have been
Going back to that outside corner position, I know you said that EJ Gaines is a guy who's put himself in the mix, but what are you looking for from that competition this Saturday?
Consistency, understanding what we do philosophically on defense, and players that are going to play consistent. You know, I tell them a story. I told them a story the other day. I used to drive a Honda Accord, and you know, the one thing about it, I said, it may not have wheels that spin backwards, right? But I know one thing about that car. When I go out, rain or shine, morning or night, that bad boy, it's going to start, and that's what I'm looking for. And throughout the entire football team is consistency. Because with that comes trust, and you know, we need to continue to develop trust on this football team, because that's an element and a characteristic of great teams, is we all trust one another.
Time for two more, guys.
There have been some rumors out there about LaShawn McCoy potentially being traded. Is the team in any position at all to trade LaShawn McCoy?
No.
Any more? Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.